Hi students, good morning everyone. This is Priya from Alpha Group of Institutions and today we are going to discuss half yearly portion and question pattern. Okay, so before entering into the direct discussion or revision about the half yearly syllabus, let me first start about the syllabus. The syllabus for half yearly portion, half yearly examination is like geography chapter 1 resources and chapter 2 land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife. And in civics chapter 1 the Indian constitution, chapter 2 understanding secularism. And in history chapter 3 ruling the countryside. So overall for your half yearly exam you have to read 5 chapters from all geography, civics and history books. Okay, so let me just give a small summarization on all these 5 chapters so that you will quickly have a recollection what you have learned all these days in these 5 chapters. So first let me talk about the resources. Resources means what? Anything that can be used to satisfy a need is a resource. Okay, and in this resource lesson, what we have learned means like resources are classified into three categories. What are the three categories? Natural resources, man-made resources, and human resources. And then resources which are drawn from nature are used like the resources which are drawn from nature and used without much modification are called natural resources. Isn't it? What is meant by natural resources? Resources which are drawn from nature and used without much modification are called natural resources. And based on the development and use, resources are classified into two groups. What are those? Actual resources and potential resources. Then later, and based on their origin, classification of resources can be like abiotic and biotic resources. Abiotic means non-living, biotic means living. Natural resources are categorized broadly into renewable resources and non-renewable resources. And what we have learned next, human-made resources. What is meant by human-made resources? Natural substances become resource only when their original form has been changed. People use natural resources to make buildings, bridges, roads, machinery and vehicles that are known as human-made resources. Even the technology is also defined as human-made resources. Third type is human resources. People can make the best use of nature to create more resources with the help of their knowledge, skill and technology which they have. This is why human beings are known as special resources. Education and health help in making people a valuable resources. And last, what we have learnt in the first chapter of resources are conserving resources. Resources conservation is meant by using resources carefully and giving them time to get renewed. And it is a duty of people of this earth to ensure that all uses of renewable resources are sustainable. The diversity of life on earth is conserved and the damage to natural environmental system is minimized. So children, these are the basic key points from the chapter 1 resources. Okay, you have to read thoroughly from the textbook and the classwork to answer the examination perfectly. With this, let us go to the second chapter now. The second chapter in geography is land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife. So this is second chapter and the topics which we had learned discussed in this chapter is like the introduction of this chapter, land use, conservation of land resources, soil, factors of soil formation, degradation of soil, conservation of soil and water, problems of water availability, conservation of water resources, natural vegetation, distribution, conservation, wildlife and wildlife conservation. These are the topics which we had learned in Geography chapter 2. So what is the introductory part here? The natural resources are anything that people can use which comes from nature such as land, water, air, etc. The first topic is about land. Land is one of the most important natural resources. And next one is land use. In land use, what we have learned, the factors that determine use of land are topography, soil, climate, minerals, availability of water. And important determinants of land use pattern is human factors such as population and technology. Next topic is conservation of land resources. Conservation of land resources are followed by causes of degradation of land resources like large scale destruction of forest cover and fertile land due to increasing demand. Then how to check present rate of degradation of land resources like afforestation, land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticide and fertilizers, checks on overgrazing. Next comes soil. Soil means what? The thin layer of grainly substances covering the surface of the earth is called soil. The right mix of minerals and organic matter make the soil fertile. And what are the factors of soil formation, children? The major factors are like nature of the parent rock and climate, and some other factors are topography, role of organic material, time. Now the next one is degradation of soil. Soil erosion and depletion are the major threats to soil as a resource. Then soil conservation. After soil conservation, what are the methods of soil conservation? Mulching, contour barriers, rock dam, terrace farming, intercropping, contour ploughing and shelter beds. The next topic is water. Water is important and renewable resources. So only 1% of fresh water is available and fit for human use. You all know that, guys, right? Factors responsible for shortages in supply of factors like fresh water. The reason for the shortage of fresh water is what? Increasing in population, rising demands for food and cash crops, increasing urbanization, rising standards of living, and all this leads to either drying up of water resources or water pollution. And at the last, what we had discussed in this chapter, problems of water availability, conservation of water resources, natural vegetation and wildlife, and then distribution of natural vegetation, and then last, conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. So with this, all the headings and subheadings, the contents of the lesson, a short brief description about these subheadings are over. Now let us see what is the next. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 we have just got a quick summarization. Now let us enter into the civics mode. Okay. Children, now let us have a quick glance in Civics Chapter 1, the Indian Constitution. So, what is Indian Constitution? Like we have looked at the Indian Constitution in classes 6th and 7th also in our social and political life textbooks. Like we have wondered why we need a constitution or been curious about how the constitution got written or who wrote it. And in this chapter, we will discuss both these issues and also look at the key features of the Indian Constitution. So, the first topic in this chapter is why does a country need a constitution? So, we have discussed about that. Next one is a situation in Nepal. Like Nepal was a monarchy. The previous constitution of Nepal, which had been adopted in 1990, reflected the fact that the final authority rested with the king. Next, we have gone through the examples of misuse of power and the examples of domination and majoritism. So, reviews of both the examples later. the key features of Indian Constitution. What are the key features of Indian Constitution, guys? It's the beginning of the 20th century. The Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from British rule for several decades. During the freedom struggle, the nationalists had devoted a great deal of time to imagining and planning what a free India would be like. And under the British, they had been forced to obey rules that they had like very little role in making. And some of the other features for Indian Constitution, there was an extraordinary sense of unity amongst the members of the Constituent Assembly. And some photos also we have seen in the textbook. And Baba Saheb, Dr. Ambedkar is known as the father of the Indian Constitution. Dr. Ambedkar believed that his participation in the Constituent Assembly helped the scheduled castes get some safeguards in the draft constitution. And another key feature of Indian Constitution is federalism. Federalism means this refers to the existence of more than one level of government in the country. Second one is parliamentary form of government. The different types of government that you just read about consist of representatives who are elected by the people. The third key feature is separation of powers. And according to the constitution, there are three organs of government. Fourth one is fundamental rights. The section on fundamental rights has been often been referred to as the conscience of the Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights therefore protect citizens against the arbitrary and absolute exercise of power by the state. The Constitution thus guarantees the rights of individuals against the state as well as against other individuals. Moreover, the various minority communities also express the need for the Constitution to include rights that would protect their groups. Now let us talk about the fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. What we have learned under the fundamental rights of Indian Constitution are, first one is right to equality. All persons are equal before the law. The second one is right to freedom. This includes the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to form association, the right to move freely and reside in any part of the country, and the right to practice any profession, occupation or business. And third one is right against exploitation. The Constitution prohibits human trafficking like forced labor and employment of children under 14 years of age. The fourth type is right to freedom of religion. Religious freedom is provided to all citizens. Every person has the right to practice, profess and propagate the religion of their choice. Fifth one is cultural and educational rights. The Constitution states that all minorities, religious and linguistic, can set up their own educational institutions in order to preserve and develop their own culture. Now number sixth one, right to constitutional remedies. This allows citizens to move the court if they believe that any of their fundamental rights have been violated. Okay. And next one is the secularism and arbitrary, ideal and polity. We have discussed everything. So these are the main key points in this chapter 1 in civics, the Indian Constitution. Okay. Now coming to the second chapter in civics, that is understanding secularism. Here also in this second chapter, let us have a quick recollection of what we had learned just by mentioning the headings and subheadings. Okay. So what is understanding secularism? These acts of discrimination takes place more easily Like the history provides us with many examples of discrimination, exclusion and persecution on the grounds of religion. In India, can the state discriminate against citizens on the grounds of their religion, children? So what we have learned mainly in this chapter is the first one, what is meant by secularism. What is meant by secularism? Second one, why is it important to separate religion from the state? Third one, what is Indian secularism? You all know there are 3 points for Indian secularism. They are that one religious community does not dominate another, that some members do not dominate other members of the same religious community. The third thing is that the state does not enforce any particular religion nor take away the religious freedom of individuals. So we have seen the picturized description about the examples of Indian secularism. 2 examples we have seen and the reviews also we have discussed. Later, the points in Indian Constitution. The points in Indian Constitution that in order to end a social practice that it believes discriminates and excludes and that violates the fundamental rights of lower caste who are the citizens of the country. Next thing is, in what way is Indian secularism different from that of other democratic countries? Later at the last we have discussed about an event in France, an event let me just give a small brief description about this for the summary, like Coin force someone to do something in the context of this chapter. And then like the events in France when we have discussed, what is the major what to say children? The last, let us say like the conclusion of this lesson is like the Indian Constitution including Hindu religious practices in order to abolish untouchability. Just listen to the main points which I am going to read now. Okay, regarding this Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution bans untouchability, and in this instance the state is intervening in religion and in order to end a social practice that it believes discriminates and excludes. Similarly, to ensure that laws relating to equal inheritance rights are respected, and the state may have to intervene in the religion-based personal laws of communities. So I think you might have got an idea of what all the points we have discussed, and this is just a revision part children and not the explanation part. Okay, I have just mentioned all the main points and the headings and subheadings of this chapter so that you may recollect what you had learned in the last or e-learning sessions. Okay, so with this chapter 2 review is over. Now let us go to the history part. Now in history we need to go around chapter 3, ruling the countryside. So what did we learn in ruling the countryside history chapter 3? First thing is the grant of Diwani and financial powers. In that what? The East India Company, the growth of revenue, everything we have discussed. Right? Later we have discussed about Robert Clive and then permanent settlement and the problem of permanent settlement. Then Mahalwari settlement, the Munro system, and we have discussed about Thomas Munro, the governor of Madras, who served with his regiment during the hard-fought war against Hyder Ali, serving under his older and distant relation, Major Sir Hector Munro. And then we have discussed about problems of excessive revenue demand, crops of Europe. This is the main topic which we have discussed. High demand of indigo and about the British indigo factory in India and why indigo played a major source of India, why India became a place for the major source of indigo, and the systems of indigo cultivation, like the methods of cultivation, NIJ cultivation and the problem with niche cultivation, Rioti system. Then we have seen so many pictures while we are, while I'm explaining the lesson, we have came across so many pictures and Blue Rebellion. Then after the revolt, what is there after the revolt? The indigo production collapsed in Bengal after the revolt, and the planters now shifted their operation to Bihar. Discovery of synthetic dyes in the late 19th century severely affected the business, but the planters managed to expand production. And when Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa, the plight of indigo farmers in Cameroon was brought to his notice. Mahatma Gandhi visited Cameroon in 1917 and began the movement against the indigo planters. So there they have started keeping a full stop for these problems. Okay, this is a quick recap to summarize the history chapter 3. And here is the question pattern, children. The question pattern for half yearly examination. There will be the question paper consists of two sections, section A and section B, overall 6 Romans. The first Roman, 6 choose the correct answers. 6 questions will be asked, each one carries 1 marks, and these choose the correct answers are taken from the textbook only. If you are thorough with the concept, you can answer any sort of questions. Okay, match the following. It will be the combination of questions from all the lessons. So it might be like 2 questions from one lesson and 2 questions from another lesson. You should be able to answer that whole 7 questions. Each one carries 1 mark, so that 7 marks. True or false? True or false? We have only 3 or 4, I think so, in the textbook, but I have given some questions from the internet also, because you have to be thorough. Cbse will never give the same questions which are in the textbook. So you have, which are in the book back exercises. You have to be thorough with the content. So some of the questions are given from the lesson also. 7 questions will be asked, the same thing, each one carries 1 marks, total 7 marks. Fill-ups. Fill-ups also, some are from textbook, some are from book back exercise and some are from the lesson. Each one carries 1 mark, so overall 7 marks. And section B is of 2 Romans. First Roman is answer the following questions briefly. It means short answer type questions. These are from classwork content only. You have to read thoroughly what all the questions we have given in the classwork. That means book back questions. 4 questions will be asked. Each one carries 2 marks, overall 8 marks. And then the second Roman is 4 questions will be given. You have to answer any 3. Answer any 3 of the following questions in detail. It means 4 detailed questions will be asked. You have to answer only for 3. 1 is for choice. Each question carries 5 marks, so overall 15 marks. And the whole question paper is for 50 marks. Keep your target as 45 out of 50, and you should always try to get above 45 and not less than 45, not only in social, in all the subjects also. So keep the target marks. Hope you will do well, and I will be expecting more and more from you and awaiting to correct your papers also, children. So obey your teachers, obey your parents, and then give respect to the studies. Thank you so much, children, for being with me. All the best for your examination. Thank you, guys. This is Priya signing off from Alpha Group of Institutions. Bye, ma'am.